today we're going to review my year with statistics and graphs. So we're going to get into it starting with my spreadsheet, going over to StoryGraph, kind of reflecting when things might seem interesting, but that's about it. And if I don't cover something you would be interested in maybe next year's stat video, or I do check in about quarterly with my stats and my goals, let me know. In past videos, someone mentioned country of origin, so I have added that on to my 2022 spreadsheet. That is not a thing I've been doing on this one. And yeah, let's get into it. First up, how many books have I read? 131. I am shocked, honestly. Like, when I read over 120 last year, I was like, well, that's because I had nothing to do. And I still had relatively nothing to do this year, but I was more busy. I was seeing friends again. I was going to see family. Like, it wasn't like I was only reading in 2021. I think audiobooks are a big part of this, and we'll definitely see that in the graphs, but I was shocked. And the number of pages is about 41,000, almost 42,000 for physical pages. So breaking that down, let's look into it at a month-by-month situation. So if you look, you can definitely see the second half of the year I was reading less books per month and less pages per month physically. And honestly, I was looking and I was breaking this down. I think some of my best reading of the year were in the latter months. So I went through it. My lowest reading month was March. March, where I read only 9 books, but I read like 4,000 pages. Like, you can see these stacked on top of each other. And I had like an average rating of 3.75, which is incredibly low for me. Like, incredibly. And my biggest months, like, I think August to the end of the year, I was never below a 4.2. Like, my biggest month was 4.36, that was September, and I remember September being a very varied month in terms of genre and page length and formats I was reading. So it kind of just proves to me quality over quantity. Like, I was just reading these really long things in March that I wasn't enjoying that much. So I have to always make sure when I put long things on my TBR to let me have some palate cleansers, let me have some short things so I feel good. But I thought that was interesting how, in general, I did notice when July happened, and I think that was about when I became busier, that I read less. But it didn't, like, I had my best reading month still, which is honestly great to see. Now, getting into the books, what was my main format? And I'm not surprised that I still primarily read with my eyes. That's my preferred method. I do like audiobooks. I'm getting better at audiobooks. I've been training myself, to be able to read faster, and it works better for certain genres for me than others. But still, only 21% of what I read are audiobooks, and the rest are Kindle and physical reads. Although my Kindle number is, I don't know, lower than I expected. I do want to adjust this stat for next year because I want to have a pie chart area for immersion reading, because that's something I did do more of this year, but I didn't have like a good way of tracking it. And there's definitely books that I read both Kindle and physical. Like, I'll have it both out from the library in the physical and on my Kindle to read at night, and I don't really know where to put it, especially when it's like 50-50. So I might have a combination category for things like that, and I haven't figured out how specific I will make that for formatting yet. But regardless, this is kind of to be expected for me. I like reading on my Kindle and I like reading physically. I don't like doing one more than the other because I don't know why it shouldn't matter switching between formats, but it kind of does. I remember the hardest part for me with ebooks was when we couldn't get physical library books from the library for a while. And I was like, I have been reading on this Kindle for a long time. I kind of want a different way to see my progress in a book, sort of thing. I also have it broken down into, was this book a standalone, was it a short story collection, and if it was in a series, where in the series was I reading? Because I don't super keep track of how many series I start or finish, although I have finally posted how many series I finished this year. But it's kind of cool in stats to see how often am I grabbing for new things, am I actually continuing things, just numerically. And you can see with this pie chart, I do have 40% standalone, which I'm actually happy about. I feel like as a fantasy sci-fi reader, my tendency is to start all the series, but to still give time to standalones in those genres and in different genres is really great for me. 6% with short story collections. I like that. I think having it be around there is good for me. And then if you look, I actually have it pretty much in thirds in terms of my series section, beginning, middle, and end/cut up. So like, I do pretty good at like spending equal amount of time at starting series, continuing series, and finishing or catching up with them, which I'm really happy with. I didn't know I naturally did that. Like, I don't plan it. When I make my TBRs, it's not a very conscious effort, but I don't know, I guess I'm doing a good job of rotating that, which is cool to me. Book source, I get 53% of what I read from the library, either the e-library collection or physical. I read about 37% of things I own, and I got 10% from ARCs. I do want to adjust this for next year as well, because I was noticing that I'd be reading ARCs, and then I'd go buy the book because I really liked the book, and then finish it reading the book. And I never knew which category to put that in, so I might have a category that was ARC that turned into a purchase, because then also sometimes I'd buy the book but I hadn't read that copy, but it's now like a thing I own. I don't know, it depends on the purpose of this book source. But in general, I'm reading things that I own, which is good. It's not like I'm buying things and not reading them, and I'm still using the library, which is one of my favorite things to do because there are so many books that I enjoy but don't necessarily need on my shelves. Into the ratings, I use half stars. I like half stars. When you look at my ratings, I might make a video on this because it fluctuates how I feel, but in general, anything 4 and above is fantastic. The varying of that is 5 is like, oh my god, this is awesome. 4.5 is like, this is awesome. Might not be a favorite of all time, but like, oh my goodness, I had fun. And 4 is like, this was really, really great. And then anything below that, I had more like issues, not necessarily that lowered, like I might still have enjoyed it, but like 3.5 is like a solid book where I had some flaws. 3 is still a good book, but like I had more flaws. And anything below that, it's like, I did not have a good time for whatever reason. Doesn't make it a bad book. And as you can see, the majority of what I read is 4 and above, which is good. And I think that was honestly reflected in when I was putting together my best of the year lists and my disappointing. Like, I have one disappointing video that has like, I don't know, 12 things on it. I don't know how many. And I have like 4 or 5 best of the year videos. So I think that that's a good sign. Page length, I think I'm pretty standard. Most books are published between 300 and 500 pages, and that's what I read. I read primarily novels. I was surprised with how many books that I had read, that there weren't more that were in the novella length, because I thought maybe I was picking up smaller things, you know, just shorter things, which is not bad. I love novellas and short stories and things, but it looks like I still read really long things a lot of the time. And how into genre, because I actually decided to make a genre graph. I'm usually really bad at this because I read a lot of things that blend between genres. Sometimes it's really hard. I'm like, is it more important that this is an historical fiction or that it has magical elements? Where should this go? It's really a struggle. But I did actually decide to make a speculative genre, which is basically anything that doesn't fit in really like solidly into fantasy, sci-fi, or horror. I put it in speculative, especially if it's a genre blend, like if it's a sci-fantasy or if it just has all the genres, I put it in speculative. And unsurprisingly, most of what I read is fantasy, sci-fi, and speculative. That is like 75% of this pie chart, and I'm fine with that. Don't think that's changing anytime soon. I would like the sci-fi portion to be a bit bigger, and I'm working on it. A lot of my priority reads for the year are sci-fi leaning. I don't see fantasy really not being a priority. I never see that not being my favorite genre to read from, but I love sci-fi, and what ends up happening is the end of the year, I just stop reading sci-fi, and I just read all the fantasy, and it feels good, but also then I forget about the sci-fi that makes me happy too. And then, you know, honorable mentions of things that are not fantastical things. Nine books I read, so 7% were historical fiction, which I really do like that genre. I have a few horror, which, you know, that's new. Literary fiction always tends to happen because of book club. Nonfiction, I read 5%. I hope to increase that, and I think it will naturally increase this year with my new plans with Jess Owens in the nonfiction channel, and then some others. There were like a couple books that were like classics and general fiction, and like they didn't have a category. So that is the genre breakdown. The years published, this is not a surprising chart. 38 books I read were published between 2016 and 2019. In 2020, there were 21 books, and 2021, there were 32. 32. I think that's supposed to be 31. I think something got messed up on the sheet somewhere. Regardless, yeah, I read a lot of modern books. That's who I am as a reader. I still read some backlist. Like, there's still a fair number of books that are backlist. I would say maybe, let's see if I can do quick math right now. It looks like about 80 of what I've read is modern. So if I read 130, so like 40 books I read that were pretty far backlist. That's not like horrible, right? Like I'm still giving time to that, but I love new releases. I love modern things. It's exciting to me, and it's more diverse. It just is. Like you can't expect the 80s to have the same diversity that we have now. That's just not where the world was, right? Going into author stats. So these are things that I like to keep track of because I want to hear from so many voices that are not like the same voices. I have fun with it. So the first thing we're breaking down is author gender. I've already mentioned this in my goals video. It is heavily skewed female. I should adjust this. I am not doing anything active to adjust it other than I'm going to check in every quarter and be like, are we keeping things balanced? Because 59% of the authors I read were women or identified as female, 24% men, and then I have a category with multiple authors, so like a lot of anthologies. Specifically, I had some books that were written by 2 authors, and then I did have 8 works by non-binary authors, and I always want to make sure they are represented in my reading. It's sometimes harder to find in my genre authors who identify as non-binary, but I always do put them on my radar and pick them up. But I do want to make that a little bigger. I should read more books by men. And just so you know, with these author charts, I have made it so I only count an author once. So if you were to be sitting here doing the math, this is not 131 authors, because I did not read 131 authors. I think I read about 87 authors. I also have an author's race simplified. I just break this down into, are they white or are they an author of color? So a Black, Indigenous, person of color author. And this is great. 60% of the authors I read identify as authors of color, which is great. This is not what it was even a year ago, so that's great. And 40% were white. I'm good with that. I mean, I don't care if it becomes 50-50. Like, I'm good that I'm naturally reaching for those now, so it's not like a thing I'm actively looking at. Like, I'll still check in with my quarterly stats, but it makes me happy. And yeah, and if you want to know, new to me, I have over like 55% authors that were new to me and like 40 that were like authors that I already knew. So I'm still reaching for new authors. That's not surprising. I read a bunch of new releases. So those are all the things on my spreadsheet. And like I said, next year I think I'm going to do like country of origin, because I have that goal of authors that are born outside of the United States or the UK, so I'll be keeping track of that. And then on Storygraph, they have this kind of cool thing where they track like your most read authors. None of this is surprising, but I think it makes me happy because my most read authors make me happy. The first one, can you guess it? Marie Brennan. This would be even higher if it included the M.A. Carrick books. So, like, it has it listed at 6. But I did read The Mask of Mirrors twice and The Liar's Knot, and she is half of the author team for that. So it's really kind of like 9 or maybe 7.5 or 8, depending on how you want to do the math. But yeah, I read the entire Lady Trent series and Driftwood, and I read Rook and the Rose series. So this was the year of discovering her. Octavia Butler, I read the entire Patternist series, so 5 books from her. Stephen Erickson started Malazan, 4 books from him. Robert Jordan, I just keep plugging along. So I read 4 books in the Wheel of Time. Nikki Drayden, this was the year where I read all of her novels, I think. Yeah, there were 4, and I read all 4. I still need to get that video together, I promise. It's in the works. So those are the general stats. That's, what I've done with my reading. Again, let me know what you like to track with your reading, what you thought was interesting. There are some things that I'm not like as interested in anymore, mainly because I don't know what it means for something to be slow, medium, or fast-paced. I don't know. Consistently, a book that I can't put down, people call slow-paced, and I just don't, I don't have a good sense of what any of this means. But if I were to guess, most of what I read is medium and slow-paced, because when I want something fast-paced, I watch a movie, I watch a TV show. That's what I do. And yeah, that's the year in the review. I am happy with it. I am excited to track more things. I already have the new spreadsheet and I'm like putting stuff in it, and I'm excited that I've learned how to code in Excel again. So I can get really specific for no real reason. If you made it this far, you can leave me a graph emoji to let me know you're here if you don't have anything else to say. And like if you liked it, subscribe if you want to, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.